Hello everyone, today we're working on a 2016 Ford E450. This is a motorhome, and we're going to be doing a transmission flush on it. This has a V10 engine in it. It has a 6R140 transmission in it. The total capacity for this transmission is just about 19 quarts. Here's a spec sheet on the Amsoil synthetic ATF, the Signature Series. And first thing I want to show you here is there's two different ones here listed on this page. One is this red one is the older formulation multi-vehicle synthetic ATF, and then the blue bag here, this one right here, is it's a low viscosity fuel efficient synthetic ATF, and that's what most of your newer transmissions are going to call for. The thing about this chemically engineered synthetic is it reduces the operating temperature of your transmission by 20 to 50 degrees over petroleum-based fluids. And the life of the fluid is significantly longer as well. As you drop that temperature out of that transmission, all the soft parts inside last a whole lot longer. All the seals, all the piston seal rings. As you drop the heat by 20 to 50 degrees, the life of those soft components goes up significantly, and that extends your transmission life. And as an example, we have a taxi fleet, severe service taxi fleet field trial. This was in Las Vegas. What they did is they run the Amsoil for 180,000 miles in the transmission, and they selected the transmission to tear apart and see how everything looked. And what you're seeing here is the synthetic Amsoil, even after 180,000 miles, contained 83% of its original oxidation inhibitors. And you can see the valve body here looks absolutely beautiful. The clutches, again, they're clean, very little signs of wear on them. Very good condition. This is the kind of protection in the desert heat of Las Vegas that the Amsoil provides. So one of the best ways to extend the life of your transmission is through the use of that Amsoil Signature Series ATF. As we go down to this next sheet here, it gives you all the specifications, all the ASTM specifications here on the two products. The ATF is the older formulation. The ATL is the low viscosity right here. So as we go to the specifications, here's the applications for the older ATF, and this is just part of them. The rest of it's at the top of the other page. I'll show you that here. Right here is the remainder of the specs for that older ATF. And then right here is the specifications for the low viscosity ATF for most of the newer transmissions. So this gives you all the specifications for that fluid, and it shows you significantly how much better that performs than the regular fluids out there. If you want to extend the life of your automatic transmission, this chemically engineered synthetic Signature Series Amsoil is the best way to do it. This is the home page of fluidcapacity.com. Got two blue buttons here. One's the Auto and Light Truck Fluid Lookup Guide. The other one's Power Sports Fluid Lookup Guides. We're going to click on the Auto and Light Truck. That'll bring us to this, and we put in the year of the vehicle. Hit the Build List button, and it'll bring up all the vehicles A to Z. And we go to Ford Trucks, and we're working on an E450 van, and it's got a V10 6.8. Click on that, and it brings up on the right side here, it brings up all the fluids that Amsoil recommends in each cavity: engine oil, transmission fluid for both models of transmission. We've got the 6R140 tranny in this one. Rear differential, they're both the M70HD and Severe Gear 7590 in those. Go down a little further, it gives you the power steering fluid and the brake fluid it recommends. Go down a little further, it gives you all the filters that Amsoil has recommended for it. And then we get into the capacities, and it brings you up the engine, cooling system, transmission. It shows the initial fill here at the top. Go down a little further, it gives you the total fill, and they both are 18.7 quarts. The differentials, both models are 9.7 quarts. And if there's any notes that go with it, it's here. And then also got some torques for some of the drain plugs here. And if you go to the top of the page, right here's a print button, so you can print that off for each of your vehicles, because a lot of this information you can't find in your owner's manual, and this simplifies all that maintenance information. Transmission filter we'll be using today is a Ford Motorcraft, and the filter gasket, I should say the pan gasket, is a reusable type gasket. And this vehicle only has about 30,000 miles on it. The owner wanted to get the synthetic in for the longevity, the life of the transmission, to help it live a lot longer. The transmission gasket, when you get out to 100 to 125,000 miles, right in that range, you might want to think about putting in a new gasket. But with this one only having 30,000 miles on it, we'll reuse that gasket. It's fully reusable. We'll show you that when we get to it. We're going to be dropping the transmission fluid first, and then we'll drop the pan, replace the filter, and then we'll put the pan back up after everything's all cleaned up, and then we're going to do a flush, and I'll show you the procedure for doing that flush. So we'll get started with you. Alright, first thing we're going to do is pull out the drain plug. It's a 13 millimeter. We're probably going to get about 2 to 2.5 gallon out initially. Okay, we got most of that fluid drained out. I'm going to put that drain plug back in. Just snug it up by hand so it ain't dripping all over me. And then the rest of these bolts around the transmission pan, they're an 8 millimeter head. So we're going to buzz all those off, and I'll probably bring the pan down this way so I can catch the fluid coming this way, whatever's left, because there's still some going to be dripping down. And we'll get started with that. One other thing I forgot to mention, this is the same transmission they have in the Power Strokes. It's a torque shift 6-speed. And if you got a lot of dirt up here around this flange, it's a good idea to blow it all off, because again, you're going to be fighting it otherwise. Some of it might fall down inside while you're working on it. So this one here has been on the highway all the time. It's really clean around the outside, so I'm not going to clean it around there because there's really nothing there to clean. But if you got dirt or anything like that around this flange of that tranny pan, it's a good time to clean it before you take it down. Maybe I'll reverse that and take it down the back. Yeah, it looks like that's the way it wants to go. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do, there's 3 bolts holding this transmission filter up, and they're an 8 millimeter head as well. And I believe the back one here is a longer one, and the other 2 are the same length. When you go to take this transmission filter down, there's going to be a slug of oil coming at you as soon as you take it loose from the housing. So you got to be ready for that. Okay, so while that's dripping and draining out, we're going to clean up the pan and the magnet and get ready to go up with a new filter. Okay, this is the reusable gasket we're talking about, and they have steel dowels in there, and there's a piece of steel sandwiched between silicone on each side. And it's a hard type silicone seal or some type of nitrile maybe. But at any rate, it's in good shape, it's flexible. We're going to clean that up and reuse that. We'll set it aside for now. This is what the fluid looks like in there. Don't look bad, but we're just trying to maximize the tranny life and get a lot smoother shifting with the Amsoil. Get that emptied out, and then there's the magnet right here, and that magnet lifts off, and that's all the break-in metals from that initial 30,000 miles on it. You can see some of that fine metal. So what we're going to do there is take a rag and wipe off as much of it as we can. And when you get as much of it off the rag as you can, then we're going to hit it with some ether, starting fluid. Make sure you don't have any sparks around. If you're a smoker, don't be smoking, or you'll have flames. Then we'll take the blowgun, Finish blowing it off. We're all done. It's nice and clean. Now we can set that aside. We're going to clean up this pan, get everything cleaned up with that and the gasket, and then we'll put this back in the pan before we put it back up. Okay, we got the pan and gasket all cleaned up. Got our magnet clean. That's going to go back right in there again. And we got the new filter here, and we're about ready to put that all back up. So we're going to crawl underneath and get started with that. Okay, I want to clean off this gasket surface here all the way around. Make sure there's no dirt or anything on it. If you live where there's a lot of road salt, that road salt will start corroding that aluminum. And you may want to take a gasket scraper around there and just make sure everything's nice and smooth so that gasket can seal good. But this one here is good. It's a motorhome. I don't think it gets used in the wintertime, so there's really no road salt issues there. But just check it over good and run your finger over that surface area to make sure that there's nothing there that's going to stop that gasket from sealing. Just kind of run your hand across it and feel it and make sure there's nothing there. Okay, next thing is putting up the new filter. What I'm going to do there is grab a little drip of oil here and just put a little bit on that O-ring so it slips up into place nice. There we go. And there it is. And again, that long bolt goes to the rear. And then we got the two side bolts. And these get torqued to 97 inch-pounds. So we'll snug them up and then we'll torque them. Okay. So the next thing is going to be the pan. And those bolts get torqued to 80 inch-pounds. Okay, and this drain plug here, we're going to 20 foot-pounds. And that's all ready to go. Now we can fill up the transmission and then we'll show you the flush procedure. Okay, we're going to put in about 2.5 gallon. We got out just over 2 gallon, and I'm going to overfill it slightly because we're going to be doing a flush. We're going to be pumping it right back on out again anyway. So we're going to start with 2.5 gallon and fill her up. Here's a comparison of the old fluid right there, and here's some new. You can kind of see the difference there. Okay, this is the bottom of the radiator. This is where the cooler is at. We've got cooler lines coming in right here. Goes in the cooler, and it comes back out and goes back to the transmission. So we're going to take this line out right here, and that'll flush out both coolers because there's one in front of the radiator and there's one in the radiator. So when you take it out, you can either use a needle nose, it's a spring clamp on there, and just release that clamp, slide it on back out of the way, and work that hose off. Just pry it back. There it goes. Okay. You're going to want to have a pan under there because there's going to be some oil coming out. And there it is. Okay. Now I've got some hose here. This is a 1/2 inch ID. Heater hose is what it is. And that should slip right over that hose barb. Okay, so that gets us ready for the flush. What we're going to do is we're going to start it up, and then we'll run through the gears, leave it about 2 or 3 seconds in each gear. Just run it through the gears once and then back to park. So go ahead and start it. Alright, the fluid coming out of there is looking pretty nice cherry red. If you can see that real well, but it looks like the new stuff. We've gotten quite a bit of oil through that torque converter already. So that's going to get a majority of that old oil out. So now what we're going to do is hook up that cooler line and refill the transmission, and we'll recheck it. Okay, we're going to put this line back on now that we're done with that flush. And it's pretty straightforward. Just slide it back on and squeeze the clamp. Put the clamp back where it was. There it is. Then wipe up any oil that you got, any of them on the hoses there, and maybe spray it down with some brake clean solvent, so it's all oil free. Then we'll fill that transmission back up again. Okay, we're going to check the transmission fluid level. So we can read it here. So what we want is, with it running, we want it between the checkered marks here, between right here where my thumb's at on the top and right here on the bottom. And that's with it at up to temp. So let's check it hot. So we'll see where we're at. Looks like we're down at the bottom. We got to add a little bit. Probably add about 1 quart, and then I'll check it again. Now another thing about checking this fluid, this dipstick goes down like this and then it goes horizontal quite a ways. And the problem with it is, as you're adding fluid, it likes to lay in that dipstick. So the best thing is to let it sit for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes to allow that fluid to flow down into the transmission. Because of that flat spot in the tube, it'll keep showing you that it's over full on the dipstick. So as this goes down through that and it lays in that fluid, it's going to look like it's full, but it's not. So we're going to add some, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. See what happens. It coats the whole thing, the rod's coated, everything's coated with that fluid. So what we're going to do is we're going to shut it off, and we'll check it here again in about probably 5-10 minutes and just see what it looks like. Okay, we let this sit for about 5 or 10 minutes. We're going to recheck it again. What I do is I look at both sides of the dipstick. This side, it was laying down and you can see it got wet all the way up. So if you look at the back side, you can see the level of fluid's about right there. Okay, so that coincides with we're getting towards the top of those checkered marks, and we're not quite up to temp yet. The other thing is, on these big transmissions like this, if you're maybe a pint over full or under full, it's not going to matter a whole lot. It's when you start getting up there a quart and a half over full where you're going to start creating foam bubbles. It's going to start churning the oil, and that's where you can have problems with burning clutches and stuff like that, because the air entrained in the oil will compress where the fluid does not. So we'll check this once more, but I believe we're right where we need to be. You can kind of see it right here on the back side. So we're in that crosshatch marks. We're going to leave that for now. You can always check it later after it's settled down again. But we're kind of in the middle of those checkered marks. And I put in a total. I use a total of 15 quarts to do this flush. The system total is just under 19, so about 18 and a half. So we got a majority of that old fluid out, and that's it for this transmission flush. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching my video. Be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe to my channel at youtube.com/c/Donsoil. I'd like to introduce you to Amsoil synthetic lubricants. We have the most complete line of synthetic lubricants on the market that offer you greatly reduced wear, extended drain intervals, longer equipment life. You can check that out at my website, donsoil.com. I also have a website for looking up fluid capacity. It's fluidcapacity.com. You can go there and print off the capacity of your engine oil, cooling system, transmission, transfer case, differentials. Be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Don Synthetic Lubes. Thank you, and have a great day.